Well, our dear friend Gary Bruton was so active as the number 2 man at St. Matthew's House until we lost him just over 2 years ago to a heart attack. But Gary said that the work of St. Matthew's House was a miracle a day type work. And he, who had headed up marketing for American Airlines and then one of the big cruise lines, and he was a big shot in the corporate world, and then he came here and he said, I've never had a job that I loved more or where I was feeling like I was doing more. So in Gary's memory, we, along with St. Matthew's House, have set up the Gary Bruton Scholarship. And the Gary Bruton Scholarship goes to young people who are coming out of Justin's place and moving on and trying to do what they can to forge ahead with life, having experienced a miracle in their lives, and that is having bottomed out or come to a place of nearly bottoming out, and then having a turn that took them off of a life that was going nowhere to a life that is really going somewhere. And this morning we have Aaron and Sarah Larimore. Won't you come on up? They are recipients of the Bruton Scholarship, and I chatted with Aaron some time ago, and I was so impressed by his story, I thought, you got to tell your story to our church. So Aaron and Sarah.
Okay. Well, wow, that was loud. It always scares me. Well, I guess I could start from the beginning. I came into this world actually on drugs because my mom had taken drugs while she was pregnant with me, and I was born 2.5 months premature. Needless to say, she didn't stop. It continued on throughout my childhood and on to, to the point where, I was at that experimental stage of being a middle school student, and she was all for me getting and using drugs with her. And so that became like a norm to me, and, through the years with my father and her getting in arguments, my father ended up leaving, not to come back. So I was stuck there with my mother, and, it caused a lot of hatred and resentment towards her because I blamed her for my father leaving. I blamed her for all the problems in our lives. And, it caused me to, act out in school, treat people basically like they don't mean anything because I didn't feel like I meant anything. And so if you fast forward the tape a little bit, I was 19 years old. I had been getting high since I was 12, and it just progressed from smoking marijuana onto doing cocaine and using prescription medications to help me feel better, if you would say. It got to a point where I was so depressed that I actually stole some medication from my mom, and I overdosed. And I went off to this little bridge, and I said, I can't deal with this anymore. And I ended up passing out, and a jogger found me, called 911, and I woke up in the hospital. And when I woke up in the hospital, my mom was at the end of the bed, and she was more mad at me because I took her drugs than anything else. And I thought to myself, man, I hate this woman. I hate her. And, when I got better, I said, all right, I'm taking the money that I have, and I'm going to go find my father. I looked up on Facebook and found him, and I said, all right, well, I got a bus ticket, and I came all the way down, 28-hour ride to Naples, Florida, looked in the phone book, found his address, and I went to his house. And on the way to his house, I was telling myself, okay, Dad's going to see me, he's going to help me, I'm going to get my life back together, he's going to agree with me that all our problems are my mom's fault, and he's going to give me a chance to change my life. Unfortunately, he has this family, and he's got all this, this life that he's built outside of me, and unfortunately, he did not accept me into his home, and he just basically told me to go back to my mom. So I went back, took the cab back to the bus stop, used the rest of the money that I had to buy a bus ticket to go back to Kentucky the next day. And I got this bus ticket. I didn't have anywhere to go. So what I thought was, all right, I'll just go over to this. I got like $3. I'll go over to McDonald's and buy myself something to eat. I ended up falling asleep there, and somebody stole my bag with my bus ticket, my ID, and everything in it. So I went back to the bus stop and was like, you sold me the ticket yesterday. Give me a ticket. And they were like, no, without your ID, I can't help you. And so I'm like, what am I to do? What am I going to do? So I sat outside, and then this lady come up, and she was like, what's wrong with you? And then I was just like, I was kind of explaining the situation to her, and they're like, well, St. Matthew's house is right over here. Why don't you walk over there, or we can give you a ride? So they ended up dropping me off over there, and I went in, and I'm all upset, and I'm crying. And I'm just like, I'm so defeated at this point. And they were like, oh, come on in, we'll take you, we'll help you out. And it was like, it was shocking to me how, I walked into a place and I'm all upset, and they're just so smiley and happy, And so after I go in and I meet with the intake coordinator there, and I'm explaining them my situation, and they're like, all right, well, we'll put you as an emergency resident on the floor because our shelter's full. And I'm like, okay. And while I'm there, I'm laying on the floor of this homeless shelter, and I'm just like, wow, this is my life. I just can't believe this is my life. And I'm hearing these other men that just had come into the Justin's Place recovery program, and I'm hearing them like they're laughing, and they're talking about this is their second chance at life, and they get this shot to change everything, and their families are going to love them again, and they're going to find that love for themselves. And then I hear them talk about Jesus. I hear them talk about that there's a God up there that loves them. To me, the only picture that I ever had of a God was a God that didn't love me, a God that gave me the mother that I hated, and this is the life that I had. Well, as I'm hearing this, I start talking to a young man the next day, and he's like telling me about God, and he's sitting with me about the Bible, and I was just so blown away about all this. And he was just like, I really think it would be in your best interest if you went and talked to the intake coordinator of Justin's Place. So I went and I told him everything, and he said, all right, we're going to get you into the program. Well, as I joined the program and I went through the program, I learned that a lot of the things that kept me sick was that anger towards my mom. And instead of being angry at her, I found the ability to love her, to look at her as a sick person that it was just sick like me, that I looked at her as Miss Deborah Hutchinson that lost her parents when she was young, that relied on men to let her be happy. And when I was able to look at it outside myself, I was able to love her and show her the Christ love that was given to me. And although she isn't clean today, she's still in active addiction, I continue to try to talk to her on a daily basis, show her that recovery is possible, and that God loved me and still loves her. And so while I've gone through the program, I got a job. I worked. I was taught a work ethic that unlike any other, so it led to me getting promotions in the job at St. Matt's. And then, if I rewind the tape just a little bit, when I first got in the program, I sat with Van Ellison, which is the president, and Gary Bruton, and my friend Lance as well. And he was like, there's something about you. There's something about both of you that I see. I see you want to succeed. And if you sit here long enough and you're patient enough, God will provide. You just have to trust in him. And so we did. And then, unfortunately, Gary passed, and Van met with us again and said that they were starting this scholarship fund and that I was going to be able to go to school. By the grace of God, earlier I had passed high school barely, and now I have an opportunity to go to school. I was so thankful. And now I'm just finished in May, my first year at Moody Bible Institute in Chicago. And, I can't tell you enough, I had no idea 3 years ago when I was sleeping on the floor, lost and broken, that I would ever had a chance to be anything more than that. But because of St. Matthew's House, because of the love that they showed me, I'm everything that I am today. I've got this beautiful wife next to me, and here and here she is.
It's kind of hard to follow that up. Well, my story is very different than Aaron's. Our upbringing is completely opposite. I actually grew up in a small town. It's called St. Charles, Illinois, for those of you who are familiar with the Chicago area. And my father's a physician, and my mother stayed at home with us growing up, me and my 3 siblings. By all means, I had an excellent childhood. My parents were great providers. They showed us a ton of love. My mother is a born-again Christian, and my father was born and raised in Shiraz, Iran, actually. So he was a-religious, but my mother insisted that we grew up in the faith, and we did. And so I had the advantage of going to private schools. I went to Wheaton Academy for high school, which is a really good religious school up there. And I was always a great student, always did really well in school, always strove to be the top of my class academically. And life was pretty good. It was pretty even keel. Then when I was 14 years old, just starting out high school, on November 24th, 2004, my sister passed away in a car accident suddenly. And this was the night before Thanksgiving. And at that point, it's kind of like dominoes. You know, when one thing falls, everything else seemed to fall after that. Shortly after there, my parents got divorced, and that started a time of years of instability, and it was really tumultuous. And for the next couple years of high school, I just walked around kind of an empty person, kind of looking for something to fill the void that left. My sister and I were extremely close. She was my best friend. I did everything with her, and I could not imagine my life without her. And that's what I all of a sudden had to do. And so when college started, I began at Taylor University, which is in Upland, Indiana, middle of nowhere. And that's where I was introduced to alcohol and drugs, and marijuana specifically. And at that point, I thought that I had found the miracle cure to all of my problems. When I drank, I didn't feel pain. When I smoked, I didn't feel sadness. I thought that I could control my life at that point. And little did I know that was the very beginning of what would be a journey that would bring me to my knees. I left Taylor after the first year, did really poorly, stopped going to classes altogether. And then I ended up coming back to Chicago, partying a lot, drinking more, smoking more. And my mom, in the meantime, had moved to Florida, and she was encouraging me to start school down there at Palm Beach Atlantic University. And so, reluctantly, I had gotten to a point where I felt like I didn't really have a choice. And so I moved down to Florida, and my first semester there, I was introduced to Oxycontin, which is a really strong narcotic painkiller. And then from there, that led into a really nasty heroin addiction. And so within my first year of school down here, I started using needles, and I got to that point. I was really, really sick. I just gave up everything that I had, my faith, who I was as a person. I did a lot of things that I had to work through during the program. I was really guilt-ridden. I was a really empty shell of a person. And I remember at one point in my addiction, I caught my reflection in the mirror, and I looked into my own eyes, and I didn't know who I was. I had no idea what I had become. It was like looking into the eyes of a shark, just a dead, lifeless stare. And my family didn't want anything to do with me anymore. My brother, who was about to have his first child with his wife, didn't want me around. And I had always been close to my brother, so that was difficult, knowing that they didn't want me to be a part of their life anymore. My parents pretty much had written me off after trying again and again for me. And I was just a totally lost cause. And then I had heard that St. Matthew's House had started a women's recovery program, and it was a very new program, just had been around for a couple months. And I looked at that and I thought, you know what, like I need to go somewhere for a while. I need to figure out what I'm doing and who I am and, what got me to this point. I was really sad. That's pretty much the best way to sum it up. I was just a really, really sad person. And so I started there, and I went through the year-long program. During that time, I rekindled my relationship with God. I found who I was. A passion was reignited in me for not only helping myself, but for helping others. I kind of had found my passion there. So after I graduated from the program, I worked up in development at St. Matthew's House for a while, and then I decided to intern with the Women's Recovery Program. I did that for about 7 months, and during my time interning, kind of on the other side of it, I realized that without an education, there's only so much I can do for these women. There's only so far that I can take this. And so I decided I wanted to finish my bachelor's degree. So I went back to school that summer, and literally that summer, I got married. I finished my bachelor's. My parents now totally trusted me. I am able to babysit my nephew and my new niece. And it's just amazing what obedience can bring, is what I've learned. That when I follow the ways of the Lord, when I am obedient to Him, when I am an obedient wife and daughter and sister and friend, just the joys that's brought to my life. And I think I've heard this before in the rooms, and I'll say it here, that truly my worst days sober are so much better than my best days getting high. I have a great life today, and I am so grateful for all of you. I'm grateful for St. Matthew's House, and because of the Gary Bruton Scholarship Fund, I'm actually able to start my master's this upcoming fall at Wheaton College, and where I'll be studying clinical mental health counseling. So, and with that, we're hoping to spread the love of Christ and be able to use our education and credentials to help other people. And one day I hope to sit with a girl before she ever starts using drugs, during that time of sadness, during her adolescence, and show her that there's another way to go. She does not have to follow that path, and that emptiness can be filled with Christ, as it has been for me. I went from a place of hopelessness to having everything that I could have ever dreamed of in my life. And so that's pretty much it. Thank you.
I'm going to pray for you both. They have, up in the Wheaton area, they've connected with Tom and Artis Leafstrand as well, and I've spent some time with them, and they are prayer partners with them. And we would like you all to, as we become more and more aware of those who are recipients of the Gary Bruton Scholarship, we would like you all to commit yourselves to be supporting these people in prayer. Let's bow together. Dear Father, they needed miracles, and you gave them. You gave them what they needed, but you dug deep into their hearts and gave them even more. Your blessings are compounding in their lives, and we thank you, O Lord, for the gifts that they are to us and to one another, and the gifts that they will be to this life. Lord, we thank you for them, and we ask you would continue to strengthen them on their journey forward. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you both. Thank you so much.